So it is my great delight to introduce Master Certified Coach, Board Certified Coach, Dr. Patrick Williams. He is one of the early pioneers of coaching. Patrick is often called the ambassador of life coaching. He is a licensed, or he has been a licensed psychologist since 1980 and began executive coaching in 1990 with Hewlett Packard, IBM, Kodak, amongst other companies along the Front Range of Colorado in the wild, wild West. A former psychologist since 1980, life and leadership coach since the 90s, founding member of ICF and former ICF board member, past president of ACTO, and in 2018 was honored in the inaugural ICF Circle of Distinction. He is the author of 7 books and a new online course called Conscious Living Mastery. He is the founder of the Institute of Life Coach Training since 1998, and he is one of the first of the 12 schools recognized by ICF in accreditation. His book, Getting Naked on Being Emotionally Transparent at the Right Time, the Right Place, and with the Right Person, is actually one of my favorites. It is how I actually came to know Dr. Patrick Williams. And I'm going to read a quick excerpt from a review. It's time to get naked. You have a very short time on earth, and the question then becomes, what do we do with the time that we are given? Intimacy and transparency are fundamental to your ability to show up bravely with humility and ultimately transform your experience of life. These are just some of the messages I needed to remind myself of once again as I disrobe and get to know myself at a next most profound level. And that review was given after you published your book by moi. So Patrick, I am so excited to invite you to the coaching studio. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you. I love that. That was, it always reminds me, like, oh my God, I said that, I did that. But here I am in my basement, as people can see, because I'm reforming my office. So it's kind of metaphorical for getting naked when you have to look at your shadows sometimes.
Yeah, and you have to go down to the foundational stuff, don't you?
Yeah.
Well, welcome to the coaching studio. So I really just would love to start with what got you into coaching? Like, you're a psychologist, you're out there in the world doing your thing. What drew you to coaching?
You know, that's a great starting question. And I have to say, since you call this the coaching studio, and you and I both are well aware of the actor studio that was done for years. I remember the episode with Robin Williams, no relation, sorry. But the host asked him one question, and that was it. He went off 45 minutes, but I'm not Robin Williams. I'll stick to the script.
I'll be like, I'm going to have to reel you back in.
So what got me into coaching? Well, as a psychologist, I was actually trained, my degrees are in humanistic and transpersonal psychology. So all that stuff my daughter calls woo-woo, woogity boogity, you know, east-west stuff, consciousness, psychedelics, meditation, mindful, well, I wasn't called mindfulness then, there was no such word. Altered states of consciousness from various ways, what would help the human potential movement that came out of the late 60s, early 70s. That's when I started getting my graduate program. So I was not influenced by Freud, except to say, no. I don't want what Freud has. So the people like Alfred Adler and Carl Jung, Roberto Assagioli, the early friends of Freud who broke away, they actually influenced today's coaching modality. Alfred Adler even talked about coaching, and I mean, coaching is a word. So I think what got me into it when I became a clinical psychologist, kind of a sheep in wolf's clothing, I really was already coaching. I didn't want to see people as diagnostic categories. I didn't want to see them as broken. I wanted to see them as Carl Rogers said, you know, unconditional positive regard, which kind of fits into ICF's modem today of people are whole, resourceful, and creative. So I think it was a natural step And then I started doing executive coaching with the companies that you mentioned in my introduction as part of my psychology practice. Then I heard in 1995 about the first conference in Houston that Thomas Leonard was doing. And I kind of felt like the Celestine Prophecy. I felt like I was called. I heard it mentioned 3 times that week in a magazine and Newsweek on TV. So I went, and there was 187 of us there, many of whom are still in coaching today. And it's just like, it seemed to be my tribe. I could see around the corner of what was coming. We'll talk more about this, but that's how I ended up specializing in training therapist types to add coaching to their business. That was my niche.
Nice. That's beautiful. And I mean, I think it also speaks to being really on the cutting edge of that human transformation piece, which I really appreciate.
Yeah.
How has becoming a coach really impacted you as a person?
Oh my God. Well, so I ended up going to Coach University as a course in training, because there was only 3 or 4 back then in 1996. It just showed that there was a way to impact people to become more of who they want to be, could be, other than psychotherapy and spiritual guidance. And I mean, there were no coaches to go to for most people. If you needed help with some thinking, you went to a therapist, and they usually gave you a diagnosis, which made you a medical concern, but kind of stupid. But I just thought, man, this is going to democratize the availability for people to get a partner to help design their future, not get over their past. That's the way I put it. Now, some people need to get over their past. I'm not downplaying that. Some people have severe trauma, and they've got things that need to be brought to the healing surface, and then go on living your new life. But I could see around the corner. I could see that this was going to be big. I didn't know it'd be as big as it is today, but it impacted me when I wrote my first book in 2000 and started my institute, which primarily targeted graduate degree professionals in the helping professions. Oh my God. I spoke all around the world at ICF conferences, psychology conferences, and that opened my eyes because I had not been to Europe until age 50. And the first ICF conference in Grindelwald, Switzerland, first international conference, I went, oh my God, this is so fun.
Yeah.
And this is so impactful.
Yeah.
That's what I knew. I was on the right train at that point.
And it really is. I mean, the International Coach Federation is exactly that. It's really an international organization.
Yeah.
And that is something that is really fabulous about ICF from my point of view also.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah, it's in 144 countries. They're representatives of the ICF. Yeah.
Extraordinary, isn't it? Yeah, extraordinary. What keeps your coaching passion alive for you? How do you maintain that passion?
Well, that's an interesting point because I don't do much. I do limited coaching nowadays. I do a little bit of mentoring for the school I sold. I do a little bit of classes, specialty classes. I donate my time to formerly incarcerated prisoners that we trained in a prison. Now they're out. So I donate their work with what they call the Reentry Coaching Academy for formerly incarcerated. And it's just, that touches my heart. I've done discounted coaching with Navy SEALs, not because I was ever a veteran, but I did a lot of psychotherapy with traumatized veterans. And these Navy SEALs aren't traumatized. They're just trying to redesign their life after 12 years of jumping out of helicopters in the dark, And then I also have a lot of contact with other coaches. I've got a new online course that's for coaches and other growth seekers. So I'm staying with my fingers in the coaching, but I say I'm not retiring, I'm repurposing. I won't use the word retiring.
Yeah.
So I think I'm not trying to, I turned 71 last month. I'm 31 years a coach. I'm trying to stay just active enough Well, to not interfere with my golf game for one, but man, I just want to be a living legacy. I don't know what people are going to say to me after I die. I mean, what was it? Huckleberry Finn wanted to go to his own funeral, or Tom Sawyer or somebody. But I just want to keep vital and impactful in the coaching industry.
Yeah. And I mean, in regard to that piece around it's this impact, it's all, and I'm kind of hearing a little bit about legacy also, maybe a bit also. What would you say to a newly minted coach today, who's gone through their coaching program, has come out, they now have, they're working towards their ACC, or they just got their ACC. What would you think that they need to hear from you?
The world needs you, and especially after this frickin' year of COVID around the globe, more and more people realize the value of the coaching conversation. So as a newly minted coach, in my work on two things, confidence and competence. And there are two sides of the same coin. If you get more competent, you feel more confident, and versa versa, to use a little humor. And to collaborate. Everything I've done, my first 6 books were co-written. I would not have written them if I hadn't collaborated with co-author. It would not have gotten done. Collaborate, hire the best coach you can afford, get in a group, walk your talk, and then go get a few clients and realize that if you helped 1 or 2 or 3, there's no reason you can't get many more, because it's not a world where there's not enough clients for coaches. Mm-hmm. You have to stand out. Most marketing people would say, get a niche. Well, I used to use a joke, say, scratch a niche, scratch. So if you scratch it, it's like, all right, so I'm going to try this, but then somebody refers me this person. Oh, I hadn't thought of that. You'll meet other people that you like to coach. And if you don't want to work with them, refer them. Be of service to your clients. We are in a service profession. We don't sell widgets. We don't even sell. We create the opportunity for a conversation that can make a difference in our client's life.
Yeah. I really like what you're saying about the collaboration piece and the confidence and competence, yin and yang, right?
Yes.
But going back to that collaboration piece, it's really interesting. I think one of the things that shows up for me as you say that is just even in my own early business, regardless, when I was a therapist versus coaching, doesn't matter. This idea of collaboration, I think there is a mindset shift that has to happen. And I'd be curious what your thoughts on this, in order to move to that idea that collaboration is really important, right? Because I think we can kind of feel like I have to do it all myself and it must be me and like whatever that is, right? I see you nodding your head. So yeah.
Well, I have a motto that I've recited for years, that if something's worth doing, it's worth doing with someone else. I mean, we're not meant to be alone. We're relationship creatures. So even in a business, and by the way, you may know this wasn't true of therapists. If a new therapist moved to town, we locked our doors and shuttered our windows, and we didn't want to tell them about how we got our clients. Mm-hmm. There was kind of a scarcity phenomenon back in the day. Coaching, not so much. People in the early days, and I think it continues today, they'll share. If you want a short 20-minute call with somebody about what they're doing, they're happy to share. They're happy to engage with you. And then if they've got a program you like, or you want to hire them as a coach, that may happen. I mean, I don't want to be busy all week long with people calling me for tips on moving into coaching, but somebody will. The peers you trained with, the people you know, the local chapter of the ICF. If you're in Europe, maybe it's the MCC. So I think that the long answer that I'm giving to a short question is, collaboration is not giving for a reciprocal arrangement. It's just giving. Sorry, that's a spam call. It's just being of service.
Mhm.
Now, I mean, it's like I said, we sell the invisible, that
Yeah.
we sell our relationship and our sacred space that we create, or inspiring space. I don't mean to use the word sacred lightly. So I guess that's what I'm riffing on there a bit.
Yeah. Yeah. And I am reminded, there's a quote that's like, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together.
Yes.
And I just know in my own business, having partnerships with other coaches, having partnerships with other people to do elements that aren't my favorite part of running a business has also been absolutely imperative to my capacity to do the things I really love to do and show up fully in the coaching or in the leading of a program or whatever it is that I happen to be doing. So I think there's also that piece too, which really kind of brings us to this new competency in the ICF competencies of embodies a coaching mindset, and how we take care of ourselves and have that sort of equilibrium within ourselves to show up fully for these partnerships, whether it's a thought partnership or, in a conversational partnership of a coaching conversation, right?
Right.
How do you take care of yourself so that you can embody this mindset?
Well, I love that these competencies were redone to include that.
Yeah.
And some of those about being of the coach and the being, I mean, way back in the day when one of my first coaches was Cheryl Richardson, who wrote Take Time for Your Life, and Laura Berman Fort Gang. I mean, these were back in the early days. I mean, I sat between them at the first ICF conference, and I remember standing up with tears in my eyes saying, I'm not a psychologist, I'm now a coach, because it was a breakthrough for me.
Yes.
But the taking care, the Cheryl called it extreme self-care, which has become a term, is paramount.
Mm-hmm.
If we're not taking care of ourselves, we're not going to be able to be fully present with our clients. Now, that doesn't mean we have to have a perfect life. Crap happens, life happens to us. But before you go in your office, whether it's live on Zoom or by phone, what do you do to leave that outside and be fully present for that momentary call, 30 minutes, 60 minutes, whatever it is? And then I also am aware that my mindset as a coach means I live a lifestyle that is focusing on my best life. I mean, so what I eat, how I exercise, what I do. Now, I'm no fanatic and I don't go to the gym. I hate gyms. I'm glad they're closed now. But I take care of myself. And I think we have to in many ways. We don't have to be perfect, but we have to be having a life well lived with continual learning about us that doesn't get in the way of the coaching with our clients. I guess that's what
Yeah.
I mean, the old adage is we teach what we need to learn and we coach where we have learned or something. I mean, I'm no perfect human being, but when I'm coaching somebody, I'm not telling them how to live their life. I want to be a model for the kind of thinking and visioning that might be of assistance to them.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Yeah, I believe that it does, because what I'm really hearing is, how do we model that self-reflective practice?
That's it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, because coaching mindset is not, as an assessor, it's not something I can assess in a recorded coaching call. Maybe they're showing this coach, but coaching mindset is something you do to be ready to coach.
Mm-hmm.
That's the key thing.
Yeah, and how do you manage your own emotional stuff? And I mean, I think, it's sort of interesting. The coaching supervision is such a brilliant way also. And I find it's a striking thing to me how many coaches don't have their own coach.
Right.
And yet there's such an opportunity with something like coaching supervision, where you could start to explore, like, I have a client that I love them too much, or I hate them, right? Like, we can get into these places where maybe our biases get activated around like wanting a conclusion for them or driving them towards what we think is the right thing for their life, versus being able to stay in that space of neutrality and vital, robust curiosity around what it is that they're bringing forward without getting our own self like hooked into it, right?
Exactly. I
Yeah.
love your term robust curiosity, because I think I use compassionate curiosity, but you just zinged me with robust curiosity. I think that is such the glue that makes coaching what it is. It's not listed in the competencies. That is not a skill. It's listed. But being curious is a way to stay non-judgmental and not wrong. I mean, I tell my clients, if I ever say or do anything that lands wrong, or tell me, because it's never my intention. So whether it's cultural or racial, or I'm not trying to judge their, understand their, I'm just curious. I'm just asking questions and wonder.
But that's something that I think coaches need to hear also, which is, and I do something very similar, which is to say to people in our contracting and in our agreement setting, possibly every session, depending on the person, if I say something that doesn't land well, I want you to bring it back to me.
Yeah.
And I'll just tell people, look, I'm not a mind reader. I mean, I can guess pretty well when somebody's annoyed with me, but I'm not a mind reader. So I won't know why you're annoyed with me.
Right.
Absolutely. So it's just so much easier. Like, I'm totally open to you being annoyed with me and bring it into the conversation, because often that's the rub they're having with other people anyway, right? And so it's an opportunity to have a safe way to work through a disagreement with somebody, which I think is brilliant. And it also puts all the pressure off of me or you or the other coaches out there to have to show up perfectly as perfect human beings, because that whole idea of, if I have to worry that much about how I'm showing up with you, I may be walking on eggshells and not as much of service to you in my robust curiosity, right? So
Yeah, I think one of the things that new coaches or struggling coaches get trapped into is, and it's very prevalent today, is the concept of the imposter syndrome. Who am I to get paid to do this? Because coaching is deceptively simple. Now, the key word is deceptive.
Yes.
I mean, tennis looks deceptively simple when you see Rafael Nadal playing, but it's not. You know, golf is not simple, trust me. But you've learned coaching, you've taken the skills, you've done this and that. It's like, okay, I took driver's ed. I had my manual for my Honda Civic, but now somebody gave me a Maserati. Holy crap. There's a difference.
Yeah.
There's a difference. And I hope that analogy makes sense to coaches, but it's like, if you want to work with clients that you're comfortable with not knowing what you don't know and realizing you're not the driver, in fact, you're not even driving a Maserati. No danger is going
Right.
to
You're the passenger in the Maserati that your client is driving.
beautiful. That's exactly right. What do they want their life to be? And where is it bumping into the curves? Where is it off the track? Where is it? You and I both work with metaphors. So this is like, okay, that's what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. And what is the Maserati that, and is it even a Maserati that they want to drive? Like, that may be our presupposition, right? You know, it's so interesting. This came up in a conversation just yesterday around this idea of, what does it take to become a masterful coach? I don't mean like an MCC coach. Like, that's great if that's your drive, or just what you choose. But like this movement into coaching from other modalities. And and I'm really, again, curious about your thoughts on this. One of the things that I've been noticing in my own self, like I was thinking back and reflecting back on when I moved from being a therapist to being a coach, I felt like I had a level of expertise in my field, right? Like, I knew what I was doing. I could hold the space, the therapeutic space easily. I had a huge toolbox of skills around how to create safety. And I'm very trauma informed, because that was my focus, was trauma and complex dissociative disorders and things like that. And then I move into coaching, and I had to really start over again with a beginner's mindset, and to let go of that expertise. And that is an uncomfortable shift. But the other thing that showed up as you were talking is that need to kind of unravel the stuff that we think we're expert on and sort of let that go so that we can show up as a real human being with another human being.
Yep. Yeah, the therapist I trained early on, I mean, my school, Institute for Life Coach Training, was primarily attracting therapists who wanted to add coaching to their business, how to make the distinction, how to have separate business, et cetera. And it's interesting because my whole specialty in my psychotherapy practice was post-traumatic stress with sex abuse survivors, veterans, PTSD, and crash victims. I mean, and multiple personalities, believe it or not.
Yeah, now it's dissociative disorder.
Yeah. Nowadays, we can have parts work and all this internal family systems work in coaching, but it's not psychosis. It's just,
Right.
So I think the way that the human struggle, I want to say the struggle, is being seen today is that there's nothing wrong with most people. There's nothing broken with most people. Some people might need to have some healing. Usually it's 10% of the population that's had severe, generally, but then what? So you got healed, you don't have nightmares anymore, you don't have cold sweats anymore. Well, now what? So what do you want your life to be? Maybe not right away, but as you're designing the rest of your life, and that's what coaching's about. If people haven't had trauma, they're a few steps ahead. But we've all, as I talk about in my book, Getting Naked, and we've all hide stuff. We've all had stuff we're embarrassed by, hurt by, guilty of, and they may not be big deals. It may have been something last month. It doesn't have to be this childhood trauma, but we've got this shadow part that we forget. Sometimes it just needs to come out of the light. It's not like a villain. It's not like a monster.
Yeah.
But you need to do it with a committed listener, a non-judgmental, committed listener, and that's the coach.
Yeah, and there really is something fundamental, like in your book, Get Naked, Getting Naked, there's this need to be transparent and vulnerable with ourselves, which takes an incredible amount of courage because we have to look at ourselves then, right? And it's not all shiny and pretty. And then to do that with a trusted partnership where we're not being judged, but rather sitting there going, what do I learn from this so that I can move forward in a way that's useful, right? And I think that is just such an elegant element of your book, which is this idea of we've got to get naked with ourselves before we ever get naked with anybody else, right?
It's kind of, as you said that, it's kind of like one of the powerful questions I would ask at some point in time, not early on. I'll say, well, to my client, is there anything that you could share with me that you haven't told other people? And then I just shut up. I mean, what do you really want? Or what's right under the surface? I use the metaphor of snorkeling versus swimming. It's like you put on the mask and you look under the surface. There's beauty there. There's unbelievable world. But for some people, it's frightening and you have trouble breathing. And there might be an eel that you see, and that's scary. But we're not diving to 140 feet in a sunken ship. We're not going for danger.
Yeah.
And we're definitely not going under the iceberg, that old metaphor, because what's under the iceberg but cold, dark water?
I will push back on the iceberg thing because I do happen to like that metaphor also. but I mean, I'm with you. And I love that idea because in snorkeling, you've got the mask and you've got your little air hose. Right. You're not off the surface, but you're looking down into what's below you.
Just a little bit. Just a little.
I may have to steal that. Patrick.
No, it's not mine. I forget where it came up. Other people have said it. The 100th monkey. It's all over the world now, right? Yeah. But I think that's the key, that the conversations one has in coaching, and even the exploratory conversation before somebody hires you, it's not what you'd have at Starbucks with your best friend. It's not typical women to women, because men don't share typically. It's changing. Thank God it's changing. But it's not about deep, dark secrets. It's about what do you think who do you need to become? How do you need to change? What is it you want to be different? And of course, with the new competencies by the ICF, it's about being. So you ask the client, well, how do you need to be different to have this world come to you, this success you want? What needs to change about you?
Right. Because we don't have control of all that out there, but we do have control in here. So how do we shift that focus internally?
Right. It's
So
it's the Einstein quote of you're not going to solve a problem with the same consciousness that created it. That is so true.
yeah.
So if you're
Yeah.
batting your heads against why can't I make this business work? Why can't I make this marriage work? Why am I unhappy with my what? Because you're using the same consciousness.
Yeah, which is really that thought partnership, right? Having somebody who, and this is kind of a funny thing also, which is how many people can you really list on your hands that you can really have an open conversation with where they don't have a horse in the race with you, right? They're not like, it isn't like I'm talking to my spouse saying how I have this wild idea to quit my job and go
Right.
do this thing in Tahiti, where he's going to be a little like, I'm not sure, like, yeah, we can talk about it, but I'm
Right.
not sure how I feel about it. But a coach is going to be like a thought partner in exploring all the ramifications. And what does that mean to go to Tahiti? Like maybe it's not really leaving Tahiti for Tahiti. Maybe it's the metaphorical. How do I bring more of that?
Right.
I don't know, restfulness or island vibe into my life, right? And like that is a conversation. Our somebody who cares about us and has an idea about where we're supposed to be going in our life is probably not going to ask us about, because they're going to be treading water with their own concerns about what we want you to do.
Yeah. I mean, I think coaches ask the questions that get people to think what they've not thought, speak out loud, and hear what they haven't said, and even dream out loud with a committed listener who is not in the game with them.
Yes, I love it.
That's so valuable.
Hugely.
And not just one session, but a relationship over time.
Right. Right. Yeah. And it really does come through the relationship. Like we're not going to, there are a few people who are good enough to build trust in a first relationship, but honestly, real trust comes through time and talk and the sense that somebody's on my side and that I can walk away not feeling judged each time we come together. And that's what it's kind of like. I don't know. It's sort of interesting. It's sort of like when people talk about, I'm so in love with so-and-so. And it's like, how do you inform that idea of love? You just met them yesterday. So like, like how do you love them? And I don't know, Michael and I were talking about it. Like, love took probably a couple of years to really deepen for us to a place. We've been married for 23 years. And I think I can confidently say, I just not only do I love him, I adore him. He's like fabulous. And it didn't just happen in the first 6 months or a year or 2 years of our relationship. It took time of building trust together.
Yeah, in whatever relationship that is. And I think for every relationship, there's lessons, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I had a 21-year relationship that ended because she left me and the girls. She wasn't happy with me. And so we ended in divorce. We're collegial today. She has my younger daughter and grandsons living with her. Everything's fine. And then my second wife of 23 years died suddenly. So I could say I've had 44 years of marriage, but two different women. So even who was it that said, not Margaret Wheatley, Margaret Mead, we might have serial relationships. I would venture to guess, even in your marriage to Michael, that you've had different stages of your relationship.
Absolutely.
And you stayed together.
Absolutely.
It's a learning path, and there is no ice cream out the door that you can go have instead. So,
and it's that ability to kind of work through it. And I think that's what the coaching relationship really offers us, as an opportunity to have a long, hopefully healthy relationship with another human being that models how we might be in relationship with other folks.
Yeah.
So what are you up to today that you'd love to share with the audience today?
Well, you mentioned my book. So the book has been an inspiration for an online course that is ICF approved for coaches, but it's also available for any serious growth seekers. And it's called Conscious Living Mastery. So consciouslivingmastery.com. It's an online course that has 12 live hours with me. So if somebody wants to take it for credit, it would be over 6-month time period, and they'd have, modules sent to them. If somebody just wants to take it online and they don't care about the credit, it'll be sent to them. But it's all about the theme of getting naked with your clothes on is the metaphor that's underneath the whole program. I didn't want to have the website gettingnaked.com because people went to some weird sites. So that didn't work. So conscious living mastery is what I call it. But
And I'll put a link in the comments below. So don't you worry.
Yeah. So my strengths nowadays are mentoring, speaking, and nowadays, I mean, God, I've done 17 webinars to ICF chapters over the last year on that and connecting. I don't want to travel over the world anymore. I've been there, done that. But I love this Zoom thing when I have an audience I love teaching, I love mentoring, and my course is kind of like my living legacy. It's I'm going to make some changes to it, but that's what I'm up to, is making the content available in chunks that people can get. I mean, that you're developing so much stuff, and we met in an authors group, for Pete's sakes, and your StoryJacking book is awesome. And, more people need to see it, but there's a lot of competition. How many books are written a year? 1 billion or something? I don't know, but
we keep chugging away.
Yeah, so that's what I'm up to. And I say repurposing, not retiring, because the word retiring means I was tired before.
So I need to retire. So maybe it's like retreading. Maybe it's like new tires instead of.
Yeah, I used to call it pro-tirement with my clients. It's like, so what's your new life after you quit your corporate job or something like that? Some people call it refiring. Same thing. I'm going to live until I'm not purposeful anymore. And that's it. I'm not going to just do nothing. I have to have a purpose, and coaching still feeds my purpose.
That is beautiful. And on that note, thank you so incredibly much, Patrick, for joining me today on the coaching studio. I just really appreciate it. And thank you for your thoughtful conversation. I really enjoyed it. I really do.
I do too. You're a great interview, and hope this goes viral.